Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner,
And this is Jim Marion.
and we're here with your national update for the month of March.
Yeah, we wanted to, I took all of these remarks in the MLS. We've got the section broker remarks where we can kind of talk to other agents. And it's kind of the illustration of a bifurcated market right now that we're really seeing where the side right here, is basically the side that is very competitive listings. And then the other side, where it's got the listing comments of seller concessions, is really the other side of the coin. If you're a home that is not in really good condition, you're probably going to be giving concessions, or you should be. And if you're on that other side of the coin where you got a fantastic home that shows great, you can expect 7 offers at this time. You could expect, anything from the mild cases of, 5, 10, 20K over asking price to if you get over that 1.5 million price point, we are seeing a few, not as many, but some that are going 90, 100,000 over asking price. So it really comes down to the quality of what you're selling right now.
Yeah, I think this is the most important time to really remember just how important it is to keep that home buttoned up, right? If the carpet needs replaced, replace the carpet. If it needs paint, you got to do that stuff. If the curb appeal isn't right, like I saw one the other day, blue house, green garage door,
Oh,
like,
awesome.
ooh,
Yeah.
that one needed to be painted, right? But like that stuff should fly off the market if it's in the right price point. So
Yeah.
this is a really good example of that where you could be giving concessions, but you could be in bidding wars. And it's just not the market we were in a few years ago, right?
No. And, we do have an inventory shortage, though, that's really helping keep this, sale price of the market intact, isn't it, Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have such little inventory, especially here in the state of Colorado, but really nationally, we were so underbuilt since the '08 crash.
Yeah.
And with that ability to be, well, I mean, that and the millennials being the biggest generation moving into homes, here on the Front Range, even we're, over 100,000 homes underbuilt. So still having people move to the
Yeah.
state, that's challenging. But what that does is it retains the integrity of the market
Absolutely,
right now.
yeah. So prices are not going down. And if you flip to the next slide, you'll see that, just from a historic perspective, where the inventory sits at the end of January, 318,000 listings nationwide, which is, down every year. As you can kind of see, we've been in a steady decline year over year.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll necessarily stay this way, but as consumer confidence stays fairly low with this like pending recession talk and everything else that's going on, it doesn't really bring a lot of confidence to sell things in the market. Plus, you're locked into 3% interest rate. Unless you can pay cash, why are you moving? Right?
Well, no, we're going to touch upon that in a second, really, where, we'll certainly see the next few months, the spring inventory, it will rise. That's what happens historically. But from a long-term trend perspective, we have rotten inventory for years to come.
Absolutely.
And so just, really kind of interesting to see the change in inventory month over month in January when compared to, December. And here we have nationwide a 9.3% drop. In Colorado, it's a 12.9% drop. Literally the only state in the entire country that has a positive inventory change is Hawaii. So get right out there. North Shore's calling.
For sure. All right. Well, here's months of inventory is total home sales across the entire nation.
And this is like a 10-year, 12-year perspective right now, just to help illustrate how far below normal we still are.
This is literally the second lowest inventory of homes we've ever had.
And last year was the lowest. So, again, what the Fed has done with the low interest rates is going to have a huge impact over time. And just to illustrate that a little bit, what you have here is 2.5 and less is, the interest rates that some people have. And on the other side of the scale, that above 7%, where you see 1% of people have. A couple of things to take note of here, and that is essentially that we have 99% of people who own homes have an interest rate below 6%, Anthony, which is, and right now we're at 6.5 today or so.
Exactly.
So most people have an interest rate below what you can get today. 91% or so of people have an interest rate below 5%. And nobody is saying we're ever going to get below 5 in the next few years. It doesn't seem.
No, I don't think so. So what that really means is for all of you home buyers out there, it's okay to buy at these higher interest rates, right? You don't have to feel like you're getting stuck in them, but we will trend to the point where you're going to want to refinance out of that loan. Now, if you're a mortgage broker, this is not great news because there's not a lot of refinances coming out of any existing home buyer, right? Now, places like Land Title, places like a lot of banks, they're leaning into the second markets because people that have these interest rates that are way lower than what we're going to see in the next few years, if they need to tap into equity, they're going to have to use other products.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to see a big.
No, but I think, just the takeaway here is if you're wondering whether you should buy or not, holy God, there's nothing ahead of you to buy, and once the interest rates go down at all, everybody's going to be like lemmings and running towards buying again. So get ahead of it now, suffer, and then refinance in a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're definitely going to be able to get what we would consider a deal right now that you wouldn't have gotten in the last few years.
And, negotiate, a rate buy down of some sort, whether it's temporary, whether it's a 2-1 buy down or more permanent.
I mean, we haven't seen a lot of 2-1 buy downs in the last month or two. You're really seeing it too competitive out there in the marketplace to offer those. But, I'm still seeing some permanent rate buy downs to help people qualify. So we're seeing more and more of that. But anyway, what's going on here at Realtor.com?
Well, just, weekly housing trends, median list price is up 7.2% year over year change. So, when we started last year at about this time, it was nuts. I mean, there was no inventory. Everything was flying off the shelves, multiple offers. And to see the price still be 7.2% higher, very much a sign of a healthy market with very little to sell to detract from that. And our new listings are down 16%. So that's really what's supporting that price.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go to this one. This is the Mortgage Purchase Application Index. Jim, what does this mean?
Well, it means that nobody's taking out loans. I mean, that's kind of what it is. The lowest reading since 1995. And, just indicative of the fact that there's less buyers out there right now, less homes for sale, too, which is part of it. So there's just, and then the refi market is completely gone. So
the market is just smaller than it was before, and it's in a large way over the last couple of years.
And that's where you get that 40% drop in loans that are being written.
This is amazing to me because we're actually lower on this index than we were back in 2010. Yeah. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's true. We were scraping bottom then too.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's January's. They saw an unemployment level return to the recent lows of 3.4%. This isn't necessarily a great thing, but we are slowing down the economy in other ways. Seems like the employment rates.
The jobs aren't, though. It is not. So we're having some really good signs. Inflation is starting to ease. The last few days of Fed data is sign for encouragement that inflation's starting to tame. But what is continuing to stymie that more than anything else is an extremely strong, robust job market out there.
And I don't necessarily know if the job market itself has changed in some dynamic, right? I mean, we talked about a lot of those layoffs were in hospitality and service, right? And then they never really got rehired for a while.
800,000 deficit in hospitality and service right now. So most people have moved to more white-collar jobs.
Yeah, they moved to other sectors, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where the labor shortage is the most. And the more we kind of read into these unemployment numbers, the more we see that sector is trying to recover and is trying to pick up a lot of what kind of is left over in layoffs from other industries at this point.
Just nobody there.
That rebalancing act is tough. Yeah. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, especially with the private sector grabbing so many of those employees.
Exactly.
So consumer confidence, this is kind of interesting because this tracks since about 2000 on the scale. So the last 23 years of data as far as consumer confidence. And what's fascinating, I think, is you kind of see, this rebound that occurred with once people got out of the 2008 malaise, we started to have a lot more confidence in the market again. And we're really high up there right now. Even though it's, down 6% year over year, it's still a very strong, consumer confidence that overall the markets are in great shape. Overall, now is a good time to be buying a home. So I think there's going to be a lot of pent up demand since we are seeing a drop right now. Right. This is showing that there is a lot of pent up demand that as soon as interest rates become more favorable, people are going to want to be back out there and doing it.
Yeah, we really saw that in the amount of buyers that have re-entered the marketplace. We'll talk about this more in Colorado specifically when you get into our state update. But lots of buyers just kind of bit the bullet and did it, right? Mm-hmm. We're starting to see that take place this year, but there's so much pent-up demand in this marketplace.
Yeah. And then, last, sellers hold off as time in market grows to 67 days. So it's taken 10 days longer than last December. Our inventory levels are basically, where they were in 2021. And that's on a nationwide perspective. I think here in Colorado, we're more like 2019 with inventory. But basically what we're seeing here is, less sellers are joining the market because they've got great interest rates or they hear the bad news about not being a good time to sell. So they sit on the sidelines.
All right, what about this one?
Well, what I think is interesting about this is just how many red in the negative, it's been over the last few years with new listings being negative from the previous.
Yeah, I just can't believe it's like this now. I mean, you expected this when things were skyrocketing and whatever else. But like, we are really in the negative here, more so than we've seen in a very long time, outside of the shutdown.
I think if anybody is a buyer or considering being a buyer, the big concern I'd be having is that we don't have anything to sell. And this is a very clear trend that's going to be continuing and plaguing the market essentially for the next decade. The Fed action they did for COVID, it has got at least a 10-year hangover effect attached to it with a low inventory in our future.
Absolutely.
This is just, I thought, really interesting. Basically with projected, appreciation, the home price expectation survey. What they look at is they survey a bunch of economists as to what they think the appreciation rate is going to be every year going forward for like the next 5 years. And if you add all that up, basically the average person buying a $390,000 home, which is, I guess, the national median price.
Well, that's good because around here, that's like the national condo median.
Not even,
not townhouse.
Not
condo,
even.
like
it's
one bedroom,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
No, it's not that bad, but
it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So $95,886 is what the average American stands to gain on their home appreciation over the next 5 years or so, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think as a home buyer, you got to ask yourself, if you buy a house, is it worth making $95,000 over the next 5 years?
I don't know. What are
I think we need to buy a couple more.
What about that extra, $500 of paying interest every month?
Yeah.
This is why
that really helps you off.
This is why you do it.
That's right. What about this?
Well,
Big bangs.
Revising forecast. So Goldman Sachs has really shifted quickly. They were all doom and gloom at the beginning of the year because December sucked for the market,
Yeah.
And so, but then they're like, wait a second, we're seeing a quicker turnaround than we thought. And so they've revised what they see is really the home price forecast for 2023. So significant.
I mean, you and I had talked about this. There's no way we thought that there would be this huge sky falling real estate market.
Just
but,
no inventory.
I think they've got some negative economists in their ear, and they used to have really positive outlooks.
Yeah.
And then some people made a couple of arguments that made some sense. And then somehow nationally, they
I don't know if
changed their
we
tune.
even agreed with this.
I didn't agree with them, but there obviously were some negative factors out there, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, there's a housing shortage in this country, and that is going to continue to keep prices high, right?
Okay, so I wanted to just spend a few slides talking about why there's not going to be a deal in your future if you're a buyer. The foreclosure market, just really quick, there isn't going to be one of much. Yes, we are increasing a little bit on this, but we're still so far below where like the bad years of 2009, 2010, ended up that there's so much room to change on this whole thing. And, when the fact is that we're sitting on mountains of equity. Anyone who owned a home for the past year, sitting on equity, they've got, options when you've got equity. And so they'll be able to negotiate with their banks to get maybe months of forbearance to be able to slow the payment bleed, or they'll be able to
just
take it
sell
on
the
the end of the year,
house,
or
right?
sell the house. So, that's kind of the gist of it is when you look at how low these are,
1 million fewer foreclosures than over the last 3 years. And look at that short. That's like the entire amount of homes that were being foreclosed on. Now we're in
that gray line is basically average out 2017, 18, 19, normal years in a market. Those, so about, 500, 600,000 foreclosures a year. And you're seeing that we're at like less than half, less than half most of those years. So there's so much cushion in this market, and you look at the HELOC balances.
This is a really good example because even though HELOC money is getting more expensive because that short-term debt is so expensive, that is where a lot of equity is going to come from when people need things, right? Yeah. And we have a huge cushion right now. I mean, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah. If we need to tap into it, the average homeowner has six figures they can grab.
They're tapping into it. Look at that. There is a little tiny uptick on the very end of that.
Yeah.
That means people are starting to feel the pain from these rate increases. But if they need money, they actually have it to go get.
Yeah. And look how far below, when you think, is this like 2008? Well, is there $700 billion out there in HELOCs right now? No. It's less than half of that.
That's right.
So very healthy consumer. And when you look at just like the overall consumer borrowing and the credit scores nowadays of people, it's so much higher than it was back then. It's very healthy.
All right, so mortgages and HELOCs and delinquency 90-plus days. This is a really interesting one because we're sub 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like super health of the market here.
Yeah.
Now, looking back at 2008, 2009, not so great, right? But you can see the difference here, and you can even see during the COVID time period. It's not like anything dramatically changed. We just saw pretty stable.
Well, and you look like
delinquencies.
prior to even the crash of '08, there was more people who were delinquent on their mortgages then. The
Yeah.
HELOC balance is actually different, which is interesting. More
It
people are
looks
being
like
late on that, but
you know what I think it is probably is back then it was really easy to get a mortgage. You could just refinance. I think
Yeah.
rates have been stable for a long time. HELOCs, it really was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah,
Nowadays,
yeah.
you have such low interest rates on mortgage
Yeah.
balances, and it has been for so many years.
Yeah.
And you're getting huge amounts of equity.
Yeah,
It just seemed like
people
an
are doing
easier
like
option.
100% cash out kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
still, then paying a mortgage.
Yeah,
So.
very different stuff than we had
Yeah.
back then. So different environment.
And so, there are people suffering, obviously, with, the job losses that started with COVID and whatnot. There are going to be some of those, but, the point here is that market is very low. You're not going to be finding too many people who actually get to the point of foreclosure because it's a death sentence on your credit to get to that point. Most consumers are smart enough to realize they need to jump off the ship prior to it crashing into the shore. So, if you do see people who are going through distressed sales, it's probably going to be resolved in, the open market or selling to an investor or what have you to clean that up.
All right. This is our last slide. What do we got here? This is always a good one.
I think which is, the point here is that, did the government do well by jumping in onto this whole COVID thing when it happened by creating a foreclosure moratorium? And I think that it's very clear,
It's very
including
clear.
Adam, Data, their executive VP saying it, that, less than 5% of the 8.4 million borrowers who enter the forbearance program remain in that program. And we've already shown you how low the foreclosure activity has been.
Exactly.
So kudos to United States government, and the Fed for stepping in and coming up with a plan that was light years better than the response in 07
Oh,
to
yeah.
what was happening, where it's just basically like, well, all those people are going to lose their home. Okay, great.
Yeah, it didn't help anybody.
Because
Right?
the HARP program back then, it was pointless. Nobody qualified, basically. It was awful. Nobody made it into the program. Everybody suffered. And here we have a complete 180 on how we do things.
We can definitely see that they are learning from past policy, right? So that's a
Absolutely.
good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, we did print a lot of money in the process, but that didn't actually take part in this, right?
Yeah.
This program in itself, I think, is something that will be modeled for a very long time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our national portion of our Front Range Facts. I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at 303-968-9868.
And I'm Jim Marion. I'm a realtor here at Coldwell Banker. And feel free to give me a call at 303-548-0243 or shoot me an email at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. And also pay attention to our other podcasts that we'll be doing this month that cover also the statewide data as well as the local data.
Thanks.
Have a great one.